Hi, I'm Brad Smart, and the title of this Top Grading Tips article is Top Grading's Most Important Competency. Suppose we were sitting together on a plane and you asked, Brad, I understand the basics of top grading, but what is the one thing that I could do to get the most out of top grading methods to turbo boost my hiring success? Hmm, I'd say. Of 50 competencies top graders track on candidates for managerial jobs, resourcefulness is the most important. So here's my advice. Look for evidence of resourcefulness 100% of the time as you evaluate candidates. Typically, top grading scrutinizes dozens of competencies because if someone is only fair, or they're poor, or very poor in any one of the competencies, that candidate will not qualify as an A player. But, you say, 50 competencies? That's a lot of competencies to keep in mind. So first, I'll try to convince you that you can track dozens of competencies and accurately rate them, and then I'll explain why we believe that resourcefulness is by far the most important competency and what you can do to nail it. In the opening moments of top grading workshops, we always ask, how many of you believe you can objectively, fairly, and accurately rate a managerial candidate on all 50 competencies so that a year later you'll find out your ratings were right on, accurate? Not one hand goes up. Typical person would say, I have trouble keeping 5 competencies in mind, let alone 50? But take heart. Day 2 is devoted to conducting the tandem top grading interview. And when interviewers are done, all of them are sure they can track all 50 competencies. And here's why. There's a certain magic that takes place as a result of the top grading interview, and here's the one sentence explanation of that magic. By chronologically reviewing every key success, failure, relationship, and decision, you get 1,000 or more data points, and the patterns that emerge across a person's career as that candidate evolves from an acorn into an oak tree provides you incredibly deep insights into, yes, all 50 competencies. There is one uber competency, and that is, we've already said, resourcefulness. A players are very strong in resourcefulness. It's so powerful that if a candidate has it, meaning resourcefulness, then almost certainly that candidate is very strong on many other competencies. So what is resourcefulness? Well, it's a combination of several competencies. It's a combination of drive and passion, analytic ability, decision making, perseverance, hanging in there, resilience, integrity, tenacity, and energy. That when all these are applied, the combination will snatch success out of the jaws of defeat. Resourcefulness is frequently referred to as figuring out how to get over, around, or through barriers to success. Not just figuring it out, but then doing it. Resourcefulness is the opposite of coasting along, giving up, running to bosses to solve problems, whining, making excuses, and then giving up some more. So let's explore why are A players so resourceful? Well, in the last 6,000 5-hour interviews I've had with managers, the vast majority of them came from the other side of the tracks. Spoiled or entitled kids usually turn out later to become B and C players because they never were motivated to become resourceful. Kids from the other side of the tracks became resourceful because, well, they had to survive. They became streetwise, to not get kicked around, and more positively, to eke out successes that made them happy. They didn't expect mommy or daddy to wipe their nose, fight their battles, do their science projects, or later in their teens, implore the police officers, hey, give my kid a chance. Kids will be kids, right? At some point, maybe it was in high school, maybe when they turn 40 years of age, most A players figure out that although life is tough and life is unfair, they work hard, develop good people skills, and if they become resourceful and figure things out, they can soar. They can realize their dreams. Just having that epiphany, oh, here's how it's done. Well, of course, that's not sufficient. That's just awareness. Awareness of the importance of resourcefulness does not make someone resourceful or an A player. The key to every A player's success is resourcefulness, which is not just understanding how to figure things out, but doing it, surmounting those obstacles to success in their career, obstacles to their success in their relationships, in their finances, in their fitness, and well, you name it. A players are self-correcting success machines. A players are self-correcting success machines. Yeah, they fail. A players I've interviewed have failed at a lot of things. Everyone does. But with resourcefulness, they learn from their mistakes. They grit their teeth. They pick themselves up by the bootstraps. They figure out how to bounce back. So, in the top grading methodology, how exactly do you spot resourcefulness? Well, as I said at the beginning, try to do it every moment in every aspect of how you evaluate a candidate. For example, when you review the candidate's top grading snapshot, that picture of their whole career with boss ratings and compensation history and so forth, look to see that in the recent years, at least the most recent 5 to 7 years, the boss ratings have been consistently excellent or very good. Yeah, if 10, 15 years ago they admit bosses would have given them mediocre reasons. If they've clearly gotten their act together in the most recent few years, hey, that's probably good enough. Look for patterns of increased compensation. More resourceful people earn more money. As you conduct a telephone screening interview, A-player candidates will reveal to you that they want a job with challenge and opportunity to grow, whereas C-players will reveal that they just want a job, maybe because they need the money. In the top grading interview, A-player candidates show they were repeatedly resourceful in how they achieved things. They exuded passion. They didn't give up. They figured things out on their own. They were flexible. They tried new things, whereas C players have, quote, successes that when you dig, well, they're successes by the team they were a part of, or maybe their boss really did most of it. You get the point. And C players tend to not admit mistakes. Interesting. As an interviewer, as a tandem top grading interviewer, you're apt to hear more admissions of mistakes from A players than from C players. Does it make sense? C players tend not to admit mistakes to themselves or to others, and they don't show much of a pattern of learning from mistakes because they never really admitted them. They always were defensive, made excuses. They blamed the down economy. They blamed bosses. They lack of money, lack of fairness in the world. You get the point. And even after all the interviews, when you're doing the reference checks, which are interviews, when you're talking to former bosses and others, you constantly look for signs that the candidate was independent, took initiative, anticipated problems, was proactive, prevented problems, quickly fixed problems, and they had the energy and drive, yes, the resourcefulness. And the boss did not have to do a lot of the figuring out. Those former bosses will say that they were able to delegate to these A players who were pretty darn good at figuring things out. Here's one more way, to look at the whole purpose of this top grading tips article, and that is to always look for resourcefulness. And that's this. Pretend that you have magic glasses on, and they register through the lens whether the candidate is at this moment revealing resourcefulness, flash green, or if they're revealing lack of resourcefulness, flash red, flash red. Can you picture that? I'm making the point that resourcefulness is definitely not a competency you'll think about for the first time after the interview. Oh, let's go through the notes. Let's see if the person was resourceful. No, constantly ask yourself, does that example of a success or a failure, a decision or a relationship, is what I'm seeing, what I'm feeling, what I'm hearing, whether it's the telephone screening interview, competency interviews, tandem top grading interviews, or the reference check interviews, what am I hearing about resourcefulness? Okay, so you do all this, you focus all the time and think of those glasses flashing green and red and so forth as you go through the whole process and you see lots of flashing green. There's a good chance you have an A player, not necessarily an A player who's the best fit. I mean, you have to go through the whole top grading process, the methodology with the interview and so forth, but at least someone has that wonderful, magical, most important competency, top grading. One of my favorite quotes, I'm getting to the closing here. One of my favorite quotes is by Emerson. Use what words you will, you can never say anything but what you are. I love that quote. It just, I put it in every book, and it captures the essence of this Top Grading Tips article. That candidate can't give you an expression or utter a word without revealing something about resourcefulness. So in conclusion, what this Top Grading Tips article is all about is, hey, in the top grading process, you get thousands, maybe thousands of bits of data on a candidate. And you'll be really smart to look at every word, every gesture, every fact through the lens of, what does this tell me about this candidate in relation to how resourceful this person has been in the past and is today and will be tomorrow if we hire this person. Till next time, top grade your team and you will top grade your profits.